to all the speakers for the inputs. This has been probably a proof to occasions that you've so thoughtfully listened to all those presentations. Nevertheless, we also like to have a discussion with the audience, with you. So now we will collect a few statements and also questions. I would like to introduce yourself very shortly and then make a concise statement or a concise question so that as many people as possible can take the floor. So who would be the first one? Gentlemen.
Thank you. Thanks for a series of very lucid presentations. And I'm taking along quite a few ideas. But, okay, I will introduce myself. I'm running now in my retirement sustainable development here. So it's very, these subjects are very much interesting. Now, these last few days, the papers are full with some ideas that came out from Germany, from one member of the German parliament. This gentleman has said that each German citizen that goes to Greece on vacation should be supported with 500 euro by the German government. Provided, now the provided is an interesting point, provided he pays in cash or by credit card, that means in a visible way, to a tourism place in Greece. And that tourism place has to provide the information that is part of the taxing system, which means this is the idea that, forget the word policy, this is the idea of practicality. How does one from the outside actually push the issue of taxation in a country like Greece or Spain, which I understand from what I just heard, the lack of taxation is that created the debt. That means the countries got into a hole because they do not have a functioning taxation system. Now, what this gentleman in Germany is providing us is a tool. Now, if one would want to talk about a Marshall Plan in Europe, it is not the kind of Marshall Plan that the United States had in Europe. This has to be a Marshall Plan that actually breaks through the reluctance of countries to do the right thing. That means I've heard too much the word policy from the panel. I want to hear the word practical movement. And this gentleman from the German parliament is actually the first good idea that was put down on the table. This idea should have been part of the plan.
Thank you very much. So, other questions, please?
There was since years already a huge amount of structural fund and cohesion fund money, not alone talking about the debt. However, to little result, one must say, when you look at Greece, let's say 40 years ago, and Turkey immediately 40 years ago, Greece was certainly higher up in GDP than Turkey. And now, in the meanwhile, Turkey became the industrial powerhouse of the whole region, economic power worldwide, and competitive towards Europe and worldwide. So I just wonder, I mean, they could always devaluate the Turkish lira. And you cannot devaluate because of the euro. So some people in Syriza also questioned that, if it was made sense to keep the euro anyhow, from your side. I mean, not talking about Central Europeans who say you should leave, but if it was not in the long term better maybe for the development of Greece to have the euro currency.
Okay, thank you very much. Another question?
So in the title you stated the problem of new foundation versus disintegration. And I fear that the disintegration is still absolutely on the table as a danger. Because Greece came up with the government with a big idea of change, but my feeling is that the correlation of forces are extremely bad. So the flexibility of the euro partners was low, and even Italy And France did not really support the Greek suggestion. So, and as you stated, the problem to refound or to stabilize the Eurozone, it's not just a peripheral question, it's mainly also a German question of changing this low wage policy. So I fear that the disintegration is on the table, and my question to you is, shouldn't the left also consider what to do in this case? Shouldn't the left also have a plan B for a disintegration? Because my big fear is, if the left doesn't come up with a suggestion, it will be hegemonized by the nationalistic right. And then refoundation is really not anymore possible.
Okay, thank you very much. Perhaps we take a last remark and then we go back to the panel.
Yeah.
Lady over there.
Good evening, my name is Stephanie Zahn, and I have a quick question to Mr. Ayala, a bit outside of the whole economic scope. I would like to ask you why you think that Podemos can win the elections now. I was just thinking that in 2011, when the Indignados movement came up in the general elections, there was a turn to the traditionalist, to the conservative parties again. So I was wondering why you think that Podemos could use maybe the momentum of Syriza now, or what are your arguments for? Or is it just a figure of Pablo Iglesias, or what is it you?
Okay, thank you very much. So if there is no immediate further question, we go back to the podium. There were a couple of issues raised by the persons from the floor. The first one was, what about the problem of taxation and fixing the tax system? What are the plans in Greece and in other countries, but particularly in Greece, on this problem, which seems to be serious? Marica.
Okay. I think it would be useful to think of tax systems in two ways. One is on the national level and one is on the international level. So on the national level, a tax system is the result of a historic process, of a process of capitalist formation. And this is true of all countries. Now in Greece, this process has followed such a course as to build a system, a tax system, where you have a lot of legal tax avoidance. There were tax privileges provided to farmers. Farmers did not used to pay income tax until some years ago. There were tax incentives provided to industry. The taxation of ship owners is well, that is really scandalous. I mean, they are taxed on the tonnage of their ships, not their income or their profit. And that goes back to a law of 1953, which is the only law to be part of the Greek constitution. And so on, and that goes on. I mean, this is the Greek story. So what I'm saying is, it is not just a case of a country not being sort of, up to standard in terms of paying their taxes. The ordinary kind of waged and salaried strata of society pay their taxes because simply their wages and their salaries go through the tax system automatically. Those who tax evade are usually, you have the big sort of groups like ship owners and so on. What the system has allowed in the past and what is these groups find useful to carry on in the present. And then you need a political will to change this. Now that there has been tax reform has never been on the agenda, on the political agenda of the Greek political forces, of the establishment forces. And it is a priority for the current government. And this is a new thing. I don't know how successful they're going to be, but it is prioritized. Now, but that's the national level. You also have an international level, which is equally important. So ship owners can get away with it because simply they move from Greece to London or from London to Panama and so on and so forth. And in order not to just refer to ship owners, we should think of the offshore centers. The biggest industrialist in Greece has his headquarters in Amsterdam. So, and this is true of many big companies, not only in Greece. There are important offshore centers in Amsterdam, in Luxembourg, in Germany, in Frankfurt, and so on. So unless you have, and Werner touched on this, we in the EuroMemorandum Group make a lot of the tax reform of the tax system. So unless you have a reform that incorporates all these aspects, we cannot really hope to have a full reform of the tax system in any country. But of course, every country has its own bit to do. Now, what you mentioned about the Greek government, the German government subsidizing each German tourist by 500 euro. Can I come to Germany and declare to be a German tourist and go back to Greece with my 500 euro? That'd be great. The thing is, if you go to Crete, right? If you go to Rethymno, it's like a German city. There's TUI and other German agencies which have taken over the airport. You come. I went to Rethymno and I came out of the airport. There was no way to get to the city unless I got a taxi, which was about 40 euro. There was no bus but there were these huge coaches collecting the German tourists from the airport to take to a hotel, which is fully booked by the German agency, and so on and so forth. So basically, a German tourist in Greece spends something like next to nothing, just for coffee or Coca-Cola. They spend their money. They pay. Everything is included in the package. So, I mean, in practical terms, I'm not sure how this idea is going to work. But it is nice for German tourists to have some kind of support. Yeah. So I wouldn't be against it. I'm, very fraternal towards German tourists. Greece and Turkey in the 60s. Well, Greece in the 60s was in a repressive regime. It was. The Second World War was followed by a civil war, which went on till 1949, and then you have a repressive regime carrying on. The 50s and the 60s, in 1967 you have the junta. Now the 50s and the 60s are part of the problem, because the 50s and the 60s, the dominant policy and doctrine was for growth at any cost. That's when all these tax loopholes were introduced in the system. It was, we go for growth. We build huge blocks of flats in the center of Athens, and we have this sprawling urban city which gobbles up half the Greek population. 40% of the Greek population are in the city area. So I'm not sure that part of, although Greece had a very high growth rate, I'm not sure that this is a period that one would like to go back to. Now, do we keep the euro? If we leave the euro, would that give us the opportunity to start growing again? Well, I don't know. I mean, possibly. But it is not just a matter of giving up one currency and taking on another currency. It's a matter of changing the whole paradigm. Right? Not working for more and more consumer goods. I'm going into another kind of discussion, another kind of agenda. Certainly, since the crisis has destroyed so much of the economy, that's an opportunity to start over again and do things better this time. But that's it by way of being optimistic. Yeah, there is a disintegration. It's on the table, I agree. I mean, unless we see the two sides sort of come to some kind of agreement, there is a disintegration process cannot be precluded. My gut feeling is that they will come to some arrangement. I just hope the Syriza-led government does not give up too much. I mean, we have become aware of the kind of pressure that the creditors can apply. We always knew that, but now we're living it, bit by bit, every day. So, and we're hoping that we're going to be able to make it. But as I say, I mean, it is my instinct that we will get there in the end. The point is, at what cost? But actually, the whole process is very much worth it, because it is changing the narrative. It is challenging the austerity narrative.
Okay, thank you very much. There was also a question addressed to Ivan on Podemos.
Yeah, why Podemos can win? I think that the situation in Spain has been so bad that the traditional parties have been declining up to a record low of prospect of vote. And Podemos represented what the people perceive as the change, not just because they are leaders, but because, the figure of Pablo Iglesias is not just the figure of one person, it's a discourse, it's a narrative, it's a sort of challenging the current narrative. It is not, of course, it has been concentrated on a person that has a very good speech and that was very present in the media and was very active in the social movements, but the fact is that around this person converges different discourses that are right now or that have a wide audience and possible voters. Why I think that it can win? Because I think that it promotes the real change of paradigm that Marica was talking about. I think that we have to challenge some. The problem of Spain is that we have too much for too long talked about political parties and not about politics. And right now we're talking about politics and problems, real problems. And we are not saying if we are from the Conservative Party or from the Socialist one. We are talking about what are the problems and what are the type of solutions. And the type of solutions that are being offered by the traditional parties are not the solutions that are asked by the population. And so the new parties have to offer new ways of new narratives, new solutions. And Podemos have we have those sorts of narrative. The thing is that when we talk, for example, about debt, we are not along with the Socialist Party or the Conservative Party because they continue to be wanting to pay the debt. They are not inclined to a solution of restructuring debt. And the people perceive that the austerity problem and the debt is a huge problem that has to be tackled, and the official parties are not offering any solution, and so Podemos is offering a solution. But the people are identifying new sorts of solution, and I think that is a good thing. I think that Podemos, I don't know if they can win or we can win or not, but I think that we have the possibility with Podemos of opening the door of changing the paradigm. And I just wanted to say about the disintegration that is, of course, on the table. I fully agree with Marica, but the plan B would be the same plan as we are defending in the European Union. I mean, we are asking a change of paradigm in the European Union that is also, or that applies also at the national level. We want to have a central bank that is democratically controlled and that has a demand offer policies, and that we need that sort of central bank within the framework of European Union or within the framework of at a national level. So I think that fighting for a change at the European level is also constructing the possibility of not continuing at the European level. It's just the same option but at different levels, because I think that what happens at the European level it's also a result of what is happening at the national level. At the time we have seen how the elites control the governments in the national level. Well, but the elites are controlling the integration process. Now that we have the possibility of new progressive governments, we could also change the process of integration. As I said, we have known a process of integration that goes from the center to the periphery, and now what is being offered is the solution of a process of integration that goes from the needs of the multitudes represented by the governments of the peripheral countries, such as Syriza or the possible governments of Podemos, to the center of Europe, and this is why I said that this is a viable solution. So I don't think that we should be. The plan should be not different. We need a fiscal reform, or we need a central bank, or we need another fiscal policy. Even though we are not in the European monetary system, we need it at the national level. So if we fight for that at the national level, we are also fighting for that at the European level. That's it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Elizabeth, would you like to add something?
I just actually wanted to add something to the disintegration question, but now I could just say, well, it's almost the same as you said, because I think whenever the idea of EU skepticism becomes strong and the idea of disintegration, that means that we are not satisfied with the current situation, and obviously the current situation means that it's not running in a good shape, the economy and the social background from a national perspective. So no matter what we do, there is no plan B. As we work on plan A, that automatically means that there will be less EU skepticism once we all have a better situation within the European Union. So therefore, I think we should stay with our economic policy, although again it says economic policy, but with our requests and proposals, so that we change the current situation of the crisis, which is a national crisis, and it's just multiple in the European Union.
Okay, thank you. Final chance for you to raise your voice, to make a comment, ask questions. Yes, the lady in the back.
So, my name is Marica, and I'm part of the editorial of ÖFSE. And some months ago, a group of Greek anarchists came here, and they described the situation in Greece, and I have the feeling it might be similar in Spain. Like people who are dissatisfied with their situation use the movement of indignados, appointed many, to go there and to say, I'm doing very bad, please help me, we have to do something. But they have, as you said, they are not people on the left project. The people who bought Syriza are not people from the left project. And when I was looking what Syriza is doing, I was having the feeling that they're giving them not only a solution, like you said, about Podemos, but also a theory of how to look in the future. Like, we negotiate, we have a hope, we have kind of theories. And my question is, because I'm still anxious about that the public in Greece, as far as I can describe it, has also, like junta and so on, there are a lot of fascist ideas still very strong. And if you think that Syriza, Podemos can provide people with a left theory also, that means for me a sustainable change in society. Or is this a very luxurious question or not a good question for what is happening now? And the other thing, just because of the massive attacks for the media, people in Austria could describe a lot of things they said. They have been written about Greece and Spain, but Greece in particular. So if the people who are sitting here, Elizabeth said Austria should work more on the welfare system. So what would you wish that people do to support this left movement when this meeting is over?
Okay, thank you very much. Gentleman here?
Me first?
You first.
Okay. We mainly talk today about two countries and two parties heading different social movements in two different countries. But I think we all know, and we also touched the topic several times, that two countries, two parties, two social movements is not enough. We need more allies. We need more allies in the left project. And so my question is, where do we look for these allies? Do we have to look at new leftist parties, new leftist movements, or is this maybe also a chance to work with already established left parties like the Bloc of Social Democrats or maybe the Green parties? And what are your opinions about that?
Okay, thank you very much. Christoph?
Yeah, it's more a comment than a question. Because we talked about heterodox economists. I think the funny thing in Greece now is that we don't have heterodox economists. We actually have Marxist economists, like John Milios, Varoufakis, and other people. And what seems to be an irony of history, that they are now in a position to pursue a profoundly social democratic strategy. That's at least how I read the Syriza program, rather than overcoming capitalism, what they wrote about the last 10, 20 years.
Okay, thank you. Any other question or comment? Okay, if this is... Yes, the gentleman?
David, Vipol Academy. We were talking about two countries from Greece and Spain mainly, which were deeply hit by the crisis, and social movements formed there because of the sheer necessity of something to change. Now Professor Springler mentioned that maybe Austria should focus on how to restructure banks or the social system, but I, for one, and I feel a lot of Austrians might feel the same, are not really deeply hit by the crisis yet, and I have the fear that it is really hard for Greece and Spain to find allies in the center of Europe, because there is not the same necessity. I mean, there are some groups which broadly support these movements, and I guess a lot of us who sit here are here because of this reason, because we see the need for change. But how would you see the chance for Central European countries to actually support or to change in a way as these crisis-stricken countries changed? Is there the possibility, or has there to be a deeper crisis which hits Central Europe as well, for there to be a significant change in the European Union as a whole?
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so let's go back to the podium. There has been a question, where are the allies of the left movements and the left parties and the social movements behind them, except for Greece and Spain? We haven't seen much of a positive reaction, was the question. So where would you look for allies?
First of all, I think that the different questions of this turn are have a common place, which is where to find allies or where to find different support. I think that the case of Spain, because it's the one that I know better, I was taking part of the Indignados movement, and this precisely at the Puerta del Sol in Madrid, and in the economic working group of La Acampada, which was the camp or the camping of Sol, and this is the seed of Podemos. This is the seed of what happened next. It is true that the Indignados movement was a sort of had a strong smell of anti-politics, in the sense that they were rejecting all kind of political parties. But the problem is that when we face the situation of how to change reality, how to increase or to deepen the democratic process, we found out that it was very difficult to do it exclusively out of the political system. We saw that we had, in order to create that popular or to increase the popular movements to take part into the political decisions, we had to create a political instrument, and that was created by political scientists, which is the group that promoted Podemos. They are political scientists from the Universidad Complutense, so they created this sort of project. And this sort of project, what I want to say is that the social movement is the seed, and wherever a progressive government arrives to power, they need a social movement behind. They need a popular movement. Otherwise, it is impossible to go to negotiations, for example, without a strong social movement behind that can support in the streets what you are asking at the political level. And that's what I see where we can find the allies in the social movement, and what we can do to support the progressive governments that are going to be that in Greece we have the real situation, and in Spain the possibility. We have to create the social movements and the channels that for those social movements to have political representations. That is Podemos, and that is Econo Nuestra also, the heterodox economic group from where I come. But let me say one more thing, and is that the political. I fully agree with you in the sense that the dynamics of politics are quite divergent in the center and in the peripheral countries. The second, the alternative in Spain is Podemos, but the alternative in France is Le Pen, which is a fascist movement. And this is quite a thing that is in the table, and we have to do so. But I think that the socialist parties in France and in Italy have a lot to do also within their political parties in order to take or to drink from heterodox economics, but because what we have seen in Spain is that the Socialist Party have embraced the neoliberal agenda without any complex, and that is a problem because if you don't have an ideological strong position that allows you to propose alternatives, you will take the alternative of the system, which is the neoliberal agenda, and that is what is happening what happened in Spain. What the problem is that I think the hope is that the peripheral countries, in the change that they are promoting and that they are asking, since it is founded on reasonable propositions, an economic theory very strong and very grounded on theoretical grounds on heterodox economics, it really can change the paradigm in the peripheral countries, and this can be also an impulse on a push for a change in the central countries. Of course, this is a hope, and we cannot see how this projection will be crystallized. But I think that this is a hope for everyone, and the way, as I said, I see is social movements. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There were a couple of questions raised, Master by Marica, with regard to Syriza, and also whether how you would qualify the economists who now work for Syriza, Marxists executing a social democratic program, or how you would see that?
That's the easy question.
That's the easy question.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I thoroughly agree with Ivan on what he said just now about changing the public discourse, which is right now the only way to go forward on a European level, and which is made difficult by the fact that there is growing divergence in economic and social aspects across Europe because of the crisis. However, and I very highly appreciate the campaign set forward by Austrian comrades here in Austria to get the public to realize, to understand, first become informed, and then to understand and realize what's actually happening rather than what the various media are saying. So, I thought he asked the question.
Yeah, he asked the question, yeah.
I'm sorry.
So you might not want to address it anymore,
okay,
but I think it's of general interest. Where are the allies? That was his question.
Okay, that was his question. Yeah. Now, to the Greek case again. Starting with the Asiminas, is it Asimina, right? I thought it was a Greek name, with her question. Now, the thing is, as I said, there was a civil war, right? Then there was a long period of repression. Being associated or believed to be associated with a communist or a left-winger was anathema. You know, you couldn't get a job. If your great-great-great-uncle in the 1920s and 30s was said to be, didn't have to be linked to any kind of revolutionary movement or whatever, but if, you know, somebody suspected or they just didn't like you and they went to the police and said, you know, this is what's happening. So there was repression. Anything that was, the word communist was what they called the terrorists nowadays. You know, it was a very, very bad thing. You didn't want to be anywhere near that area. So, and the Communist Party became legal after the junta, the fall of the junta. And it was Andreas Papandreou, the elder, who said, well, all right, the people who were in the resistance, who were communists and so on, they should be integrated in society. You know, there were positive elements. So there's a long story with the Greek kind of left and the Greek communist section, which is has always been kind of on the margin of society and of politics. Always, I mean, since the end of the Second World War and the Civil War. That has changed so far as to now have a left-wing government, majority, a senior partner in the coalition government, which is left-wing, associated with left ideas, promoting left ideas, and what I put up a table showing the percentage share of Syriza since 2012, and that has been steadily rising, which indicates that that people are not afraid of the left anymore. They're prepared to try it. And I think this is a very important step in the direction that you were saying. Now, putting all this together and creating a sustainable theory, this is a long-term project, right? It goes in various steps. It carries a dynamic. The fact, which is going on to the second question about the allies, because the left-wing forces are forging ahead, well, you know, optimistically speaking, they're going ahead, that convinces greater sections of the society to just sit down and listen to them, to think about it, and to say, all right, that's reasonable, you know, that's feasible, it's interesting. I could go along with this. Even Marxist ideas go through this kind of process. So through this kind of dynamism, you obtain new allies. Syriza is an acronym for the coalition of the radical left. Syriza became a unified party in 2013, but it has been around since the early 2000s as a coalition, a loose coalition between various sections of the Greek left, which were, well, synaspismos, which again means a coalition, but synaspismos, which sprang out of the coming together of various splits from the Communist Party in the early 90s. Then after 10 years of being in existence, worked with other smaller factions and groupings and individuals, left-wing individuals, to put together a coalition that was claimed was in the national elections at various times throughout the 2000s. So it's in 2013 that there was the first Congress of Syriza, which said, okay, let's pull our forces together and set ourselves up as a single party. So this idea of having allies coming together, it's in the kind of DNA of Syriza. It's part of its makeup. It's very much like Podemos. The difference is that within Syriza there was synaspismos, which was a party that had already been in existence for 10 years, and therefore there was a kind of political experience there and political basis. So Syriza has been working very closely with other groupings since coming into existence as a single party. It's been working alongside the Greens in Europe are divided in two. So, but Syriza has been working with one of these two Green parties because they're prepared to work with Syriza alongside Syriza. May I remind you of the European Left Party? I think this is an important element of the various left forces coming together and working towards a common goal. And of course, we have had this phenomenon of people demonstrating in favor of a government. This is unique. The next day after the new government was elected, and it was, for us who live in Athens and demonstrate every so often, it was, a very positive experience to have the rails removed from Syntagma Square. And you can actually, when you demonstrate nowadays, you can actually move into Syntagma Square. And people were demonstrating in the squares in support of the government. There's still the support for the Syriza-led government is very great. Is about, according to the opinion polls, is around 70%, which means that instinctively a large section of the Greek population realizes the difficulties this government is facing and the effort it's making to put things into effect in accordance with its electoral program.
Okay, thank you. Final word to Elizabeth.
Oh. Well, I think thank you for your patience. I can't add anything on Spain or Greece. I just think that we are also hit by a crisis, and crisis, it's not in absolute terms, but how we have perception of crisis. And I think lots of Austrian households are in a severe crisis already. And of course, media and politics always try to look forward, have a positive view. But once we are more realistic, then I think those are then Euroscepticism comes up, and again, alternative policies will try to overcome that. That's all.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks all for you for coming.